Hello, good day everyone. Good day to you, ma'am. So our report is all about anatomy and physiology of urinary system together with my partner Claire Hinampas. So let's start. So a urinary system is also known as or can be called as a renal system or urinary tract. No? So the composition, it is composed of two kidneys, two ureters, one urinary bladder, and one urethra. After the kidney filters the blood, as it is the process of the urinary system, they return most of the water and solutes to the bloodstream. No? So the remaining water and solute constitute as urine, as ihi. So which passes through the ureters and is stored in the urinary bladder until it's excreted from the body through the urethra. So the study of the anatomy and physiology and pathology of kidney is called nephrology. And the branch of medicine that studies the male and female urinary system is called urology. And the one that examine, or the physician or the doctor of the urology, is called the urologist. So the urinary tract is divided into two parts, the upper part and the lower part. In the upper part, it includes the kidneys and the ureter. The lower part, it includes the bladder and the urethra. So urine formed by the kidneys passes first in the ureter. After the kidney, it passes through the ureter, then to the urinary bladder for storage, and finally through the urethra for the elimination from the body. And here are the rules of our urinary system. The kidney, where filtration happens, no, it is in the kidney where filtration happens. Then in the ureter, it is a pair of tubes that transport. Ureter function as transportation of urine from kidney down to the urinary bladder. Then now the urinary bladder is a temporary storage reservoir for urine. So it is where the urine is stored. And the urethra, the last one for the elimination of the exist secreted waste from the body. Urethra is a tube that carries urine from the bladder to the body exterior. So it is the urethra, the one that will expel or um, take out or release the urine from your body. And we have here the two anatomy, the two diagram of the urinary system of both female and male. So we have here the basic parts, the two kidneys, the right kidney and the left kidney, the ureter, the bladder, the urine inside the bladder, and of course we have here the urethra, the the organ that excrete or release the urine in the male is called the penis organ. That's the reproductive organ. And for the female, the urethra is through their vagina. And then the process, the anatomy of the male urinary system, showing the kidneys, ureters, bladders, and urethra. Urine is made in the renal tubules, is the ureter, and collects in the renal filbis of each kidney. The urine flows from the kidney through the ureters to the bladder. The urine is stored in the bladder until it leaves the body through urethra. Same as with the process in the female urinary system. It's just that they differ in the reproductive organ, where the urine or the waste from the filtrate blood is being eliminated from the body, but the process is just the same. And we have here the overall function of our urinary systems. So number one, it is for the regulation of blood ionic composition. So the kidney do the major work of the urinary system, as we all know. The other parts of the urinary system are mostly function as passageways, such as the ureter, and also as function as storage areas like the bladder. Functions of the kidneys includes the following. Number one is the regulation of blood ionic composition. So the kidneys help regulate the blood level of several ions, most importantly the sodium ion. No? Take note of the ions that regulates the blood levels. Importantly, the sodium ions, the potassium ions, and the calcium. The other one is regulation of blood pH. The kidneys excrete a variable amount of hydrogen ions into the urine and conserve bicarbonate ion, or the H3O3, which are important buffer of hydrogen in the blood. So, both of these activities help regulate the blood pH. Regulation of blood volume, the kidneys adjust. The third one is the regulation of blood volume. So the kidney adjust blood volume by conserving or eliminating the water in the urine. So an increase in the blood volume increases the blood pressure. A decrease in blood volume decreases blood pressure. So that's the mechanism. And the fourth one, we have the regulation of blood pressure. So the kidneys also help regulating the blood pressure of human by secreting the enzymes renin, renin, which activates the renin angiotensin aldosterone pathway. So increased renin causes, if the renin increases, it causes an increase also in the blood pressure. So that's it. And we have another one, the maintenance of blood osmolarity. So by separately regulating loss of water and loss of solute in the urine, the kidney maintain a constant blood osmolarity close to 300 million moles per liter. And we have the other function of our urinary system, the production of hormones. So of course, the kidneys produce two hormones. It is called the number one, the calcitrol, calcitriol. This is an active form of vitamin D. No, the number one hormone that is produced by the urinary system, parts of the urinary system, is called the calcitrol, or the active form of vitamin D. Then, this vitamin D helps regulate calcium homeostasis, and another one hormone that's being produced is the erythropoietin. So it stimulates the production of red blood cells. And the second to the last function, regulation of blood glucose level. So, like the liver, same as with liver, the kidneys also can use the amino acid glutamine in the The term for the process is gluconeogenesis, no? It is a gluconeogenesis, the synthesis of new glucose molecules. So they can release glucose in the blood to help maintain a normal blood glucose level. And the last function, excretion of waste and foreign substances. So, where it is really commonly the function of the kidney as we all know in our layman's term, common knowledge is our common knowledge that is it excrete waste and foreign substances in our body. So by forming urine, the kidneys help excrete waste substances that have no use function in the body. So those are no use function substances. So they are excreted in the form of waste, in the form of urine because they are waste. So some waste excreted in urine result from metabolic reactions in the body. So this includes ammonia and urea from the deamination of amino acid and bilirubin. Okay, next slide. So we have here the kidney. So let's discuss the kidney. So our kidney is composed of two, the left and the right kidney. So the paired kidneys, human have two kidneys, no? They are reddish in color, kidney in shape. It is a bean shape organ located just above between the peritrium and posterior wall of abdomen, not stomach, because their position is posterior to the peritorium of the abdominal cavity. The organ are said to be retroperitoneal, meaning when we say retro, it is behind. So the kidneys are located on the other side of the spine, so at the back in the retroperitoneal space. So retro means behind, at the back. The left kidney is situated little higher than the right kidney because it is because of the liver. The liver is located right below the right kidney, no? So that's why the left is little higher than the right one because of the liver on the right side of the abdominal cavity above the right kidney. And these are the anatomy of the parts of our urinary system in a cross-section view. We have here the peritrium and the renal vein, the color blue, the aorta, the largest artery, then inferior vena cava, the largest vein, and renal artery. Those parts, those blood vessels that are situated in the kidney are called renal vessels. So when we found vessels like arteries connected to the kidney, it is called renal artery. Same as with the veins, if it is located or connected in the kidney in the process of urinalysis, it is called a renal veins. And we have here the body of vertebra of human and the body wall. It is a posterior view, and the upper one is the anterior. So let's proceed. So the kidney measures approximately 18 to 14 centimeters in length and 6 centimeters in width and is about 4 centimeters thick. So the kidney are protected by fat, muscles, and ribs of the back. Perirenal fat, also called as the renal fat protects the kidney from exterior force or damage. So for the information of everybody, an adult kidney has a mass of 150 grams, or it is about, if converted to ounce, it is 5 ounces, and its average dimension or the length is just what being shown in the PPT is an 11 to 14 centimeters in length, 6 in width, and 4 in thick. And about the size compared to a large bar of soap. And we have here the renal sinus and the renal hilum or hilum. So the medial surface is concave. Just look at the picture. It is concave and has a vertical cliff called the renal hilum. So the vertical hilum there, that part is called the renal hilum, and that leads into an internal space and within the kidney called the renal sinus. So the vertical cliff there is called the renal hilum, and that continues until it reaches the renal sinus or sinus. So the ureter, renal blood vessel, lymphatics, and nerves all joins each kidney at the hilum and occupies the sinus. Okay, the blood vessels, all the base vessels, the lymphatics and nerves join first at the hilum, and this group of connectors or vessels is now positioned in one place that is called a renal sinus or sinus. So the renal sinus is a cavity within the kidney which is occupied by the renal pelvis, renal calyces, blood vessels, nerves, and fats. Okay, and the renal hilum extended into a large cavity within the kidney occupied by renal vessels, minor calyces, and many more. So we have here the supported tissue layers of our kidney. So there are three supported tissues. These are the renal fascia, anterior renal fascia, the renal fat capsule, and the fibrous capsule. So the three layers of supportive tissues surround each kidney. From superficial to deep, these are the renal, again, perirenal, and the fibrous. So the renal fascia is an outer layer of the dense fibrous connective tissue that anchors the kidney and the adrenal gland to surrounding structure. And we have the second one, the median layer, the perirenal fat capsule. So it is a fatty mass that surrounds the kidney and cushion it against blues. And we have here the deep part, the portion of the covering layer of the kidney. It is called the fibrous capsule. So it is a transparent capsule that prevents infections in surrounding region from spreading to the kidney. So these are the layers of the supportive tissues: the renal fascia, perirenal fat capsule, and the fibrous capsule. And we have here another diagram. It shows the same as a summary of our discussion a while ago. The renal artery, the where we can find the renal hilum, the renal vein, the kidney, the ureter, adrenal gland. It is positioned above our right kidney, and we have here the urinary bladder and the urethra. Okay, next slide. So let's move to the interior anatomy of our kidney. So we have here the two main regions of our kidney are the superficial light red region. So that one is called the renal cortex. So it is um, labeled in the diagram on the screen. So it is called the renal cortex. And of course, the dark red region is called the renal medulla. So it is just adjacent to each other. It's just close to each other, the renal cortex and the renal medulla. And we have also other parts. The renal column and the renal pyramid, the renal papilla, renal sinus, renal capsule. All of those we're going to discuss later on. So, okay, next slide. So we have here the internal gross anatomy. So let's go deep down to our discussion about the three distinct regions in our kidney. So we have here the cortex, the medulla, and the pelvis. So a frontal section through a kidney reveals the three distinct regions, the cortex, the medulla, and the pelvis. So the most superficial region outside, away from the internal part, is called the renal cortex. So it is there in the diagram shown on the screen. So it is a light colored and has a granular appearance. So deep to the cortex is the darker or the reddish brown, as was I have said a while ago. It is called the renal medulla. So it exhibit cone shape tissue masses called medullary or renal pelvis. So it exhibit or shows a shape of just like a cone. So it is a tissue masses called the renal pyramids or the medullary. So the broad base of each pyramid faces down the cortex and its apex or papilla or the nipple or what we call the nipple points internally. So it's just like an inverted pyramid. So what we can say in the picture. So the pyramids appear striped because they are formed almost entirely of parallel bundles of microscopic urine collecting tubules. So later on we will discuss deeper about these urine collecting tubules, and this is very important in the filtration of our blood, our plasma, in order for us to have what we call the urine outside our body. So these are the collecting tubes and the capillaries. The renal columns, inwards extension of cortical tissues, separates the pyramid. So the one that separates the pyramid is called the renal columns. It is an inward extension of cortical tissue. So each pyramid or the medullary is, what do we call with this? It surrounds the cortical tissues, constitute one of approximately 8 lobes of kidneys. So there are 8 medullaries or what we call 8 lobes in the kidney. So the renal pelvis is just like a funnel shaped tube. It's a continuous with ureter leaving the hilum. So its branching extension of the pelvis from 2 or 3 major calyces, or each major calyces subdivides to form several minor calyces, cup-shaped areas that enclose the papillae. So that's it. We have here the papillae, the minor calyces, the major calyces, and the kidney. And we have here the renal cortex, renal medulla, and renal pyramid. So because of the kidney remove waste from the blood and regulates its volume and ionic composition, it is not surprising that they are abundantly supplied with blood vessels, as we all know. So although the kidneys constitute less than 0.5% of total body mass, they receive, even they are just little organ, unlike other largest organ in our body like our liver, our kidney constitute only 0.5 of total body mass. While being one of the smallest, but the kidney received 20 to 25% of resting cardiac output via the right and left renal arteries. So, it's a cardiac, it is um, a force or something mechanism coming from our heart. That's it. So, we have here the renal cortex. We already discussed it. It's a granular, then pyramid, then the renal columns, and the fibrils. So, I would like you to share that for your information. In adults, renal blood flow, so the blood flowing in our kidney through both kidneys is about it accounts to 1,200 milliliters per minute. So just imagine uh, 12 liters per minute passing through our kidney in both kidneys. So within the kidney, the renal artery divides into several. Okay, next slide. So within the kidney, the renal arteries are divided into several segment arteries. No, it is called we heard articulate arteries, the interlobal arteries, the cortical radiate arteries. So there are so many branches of arteries from the main arteries located at the hilum. So it is segmented arteries which supplies different parts of the kidney. So each segmentary artery gives off several branches and as interlobal. So we have here the interlobal from the mother artery or the main artery, the renal artery, the segmented arteries, and we have here followed by interlobal arteries. And we have here followed by the interlobal, the arcuate arteries. So it is found at the base of the renal pyramid. The interlobal arteries arc between the renal medulla and cortex. So it is shaped like a bow. Then we have here the division of arcuate arteries produce a series of cortical radiate arteries. So these arteries radiates outward and enter the renal cortex. So the branches are called afferent arterioles. When we say afferent, from the word aff means toward and ferent means to carry. So each nephron received at the upper this type of arteries, each nephron receive one afferent arteriole which divides into a bowl-shaped capillary network called the glomerulus. So glomerulus, it means a little bowl. So in plural, we call it glomeruli. So the glomerular capillaries then reunite to form an efferent. A while ago, we have said an afferent arterioles, but now it is now the glomerular capillaries are forming an efferent arterioles. When we say efferent, it is out. It is an opposite of the afferent. Afferent arterioles means to carry towards, but when we say efferent, it carries outward. So, it carries blood out of the glomerulus. So, the capillary networks plays an important role in urine formation. So, this capillaries is really important in the urine formation. So, take note that meruli are considered part of both the cardiovascular and urinary system. So the apparent arterioles divide to form now the peritubual capillaries. So when we say peri, it's around, surrounding capillaries. So which surrounds the tubular parts of the nephron and the renal cortex, loop-shaped capillaries via the vasa recta. When we say vasa recta, rather it is vasa recta. It is called vasa recta. When we say vasa, it is a vessel, and recta, it is a straight one. It is a straight vessel in other words. So that supplies tubular portion of the nephron in the renal medulla. So the peritubial capillaries form cortical radiates veins. So it is now the peritubial capillaries form cortical radiate veins which also receive blood from the vasa recta or the street vessel. Then the blood drains through the articulate vein to the interloval vein running through the perineal pyramid. So blood leaves the kidney through a single renal vein. It leaves the kidney, as we all know that kidney are kidney has composed of veins and artery vessels, and that blood leaves the kidney through a single renal vein that exits at the renal hilum and carries venous blood to the inferior vena cava. Okay, that's it. That's the mechanism or the flow of our urine from the main artery going down to the segmented arteries, then it enters the small veins and it is released through the large vein called inferior vena cava. So it's not release, it is just transport to the inferior vena cava. So next slide. So we have here the nerve and blood supply. So it is just the same with the previous slide. So, okay, let's skip this one. And we have here the nephrons. So when we say nephrons, these are the functional units of kidney. When we say life, the units of life is cell, but in kidney the functional unit of kidney are called nephrons. So each nephrons called or consists of two parts, the renal corpuscle and also the blood plasma is filtered and the renal tubules. So again, the two parts consisting the nephrons, the renal corpuscle, corpuscle and the renal tubules. No, so the function of the renal corpuscle, it is where blood is filtered, and in the renal tubules, it to which the filter fluid passes. So it functions just like a transporting vessel. And we have here the each kidney. We all know that each kidney has 1 million nephrons, tiny body blood processing units which carry out the process that form urine. So there are thousands of collecting ducts, each of which collects fluid from several nephrons and conveys it to the renal pelvis. So each nephrons consists of a renal corpus, okay? And we have here the renal corpus are located on the renal cortex, while the renal tubules begin at the cortex and is passed in the medulla before returning to the cortex. Okay, another one we have here. The renal corpus is consists of tuft of capillaries called a glomerulus and a cup-shaped hollow structure called the glomerular capsule. So the glomerular is also known as the Bowman's capsule. So the glomerular capsule completely surrounds the glomerulus, much as well-worn baseball glove encloses a ball, and it continues with the renal tubule. So the two components of the renal corpus are the glomerulus. It is also known as the capillary network. And the glomerular capsule or the Bowman's capsule, it is a double-walled epithelial cup that surrounds the glomerular capillaries. So the blood plasma is filtered in the capsule, in the glomerular capsule. And the filtered fluid is now passes or going to the renal tubules, which has three main sections. So we'll discuss later. And to be able the fluid to pass The renal tubules consist of these three main sections. Number one is the proximal. You have there. We have here the proximal convoluted tubules or the PCT, and we have here the nephron loop or the loop of Henle, and the distal convoluted tubules or the DCT. It is there in the picture shown on the screen. So proximal denotes the nearest tubules, and the distal means the part that distant from the tubules from the glomerular capsule. So convoluted means the tubules is tightly coiled, so it is not straight. So these two can be found within the renal cortex. And we have here the glomerulus. The endothelium of glomerulus capillaris is fenestrated, or when we say fenestrated, is penetrated by many pores, and which makes the capillaries exceptionally porous, so it allows permeability of the fluid it pass through it. So this property allows the large amount of solute-rich but virtually protein-free fluid to pass from the blood into the glomerular capsule. So this plasma derives in fluid filtrate that the renal tubules form. So the glomerular capsule has an external parietal layer and a visceral layer that clings to the glomerular capillaries. So we have here the renal. So the high pressure in the glomerulus that is needed for filtration. This filtration yield a large amount of fluid. Most 99% of fluid is reabsorbed by the renal tubules cells. And then return to the blood in the peritubial capillary veins. So the afferent arterioles arise from the cortical, radiate arteries that run through the renal cortex. So the efferent arterioles on the other side feed into either the peritubial capillaries or the vasa recta. Okay, we have already discussed this one. Next slide. So again, the renal tubules is just long at 3 centimeter long, and this tubule has three um, section: the proximal, the nephron loop, and the distal convoluted tubules. And we have the other one, the collecting ducts. Each collecting ducts receive filtrate from many nephrons. Once the nephron has done filtrating, it will now go to the collecting ducts. Okay. And that's the diagram, and this is the photomicrograph of a renal cortical tissue. And the other one, the diagram B, is the scanning of electron micrograph of the linear tubules. So we have here the classes of nephrons. So there are two classes of nephrons. It is the cortical nephrons and the juxtamedullary nephrons. So cortical nephrons account for 85% of the nephrons in the kidneys. So it's except for small parts of the nephron that dip into the outer medulla, they are located entirely in the cortex. So the juxtamedullary nephrons originate close to the cortex medulla junction, and they play an important role in the kidney ability to produce concentrated urine. Concentrated urine will be discussed by my partner later on. So this is the diagram. This is the renal corpuscle, the glomerulus, the capillaries, and we have the capsule, proximal convoluted. Then we have here the periturbial capillaries, the efferent arteriole, afferent arteriole, efferent, then vasa recta. That's it. So it is divided. It is segmented according to the types of the what we call here classes of nephrons. We have here the at the top of the diagram the cortical nephrons and the juxtamedulla nephrons. So cortical uh, compared to juxtamedular, cortical is a short nephron loop. Glomerulus farther from the cortex medulla junction, efferent arteriole supplies periturbial capillaries, while the juxtamedullary nephron is a long nephron loop. Glomerulus closer to the cortex medulla junction, efferent arteriole supplies vasa recta. Okay. Then we have here the capillary beads of the nephron. So renal tubules of every nephron has two capillary beads. So we have here the beads, the glomerulus, and the peritubial capillaries. So glomerulus is a specialized for filtration. So it is the capillaries. It is term other term for capillaries, glomerulus. It differs from other capillary beads in the body in that it both feed and drain by arterioles, the afferent the moving towards and the efferent moving outward. So filtration produces a large amount of fluid, most 99% readily absorbed by renal tubule cells and return to blood in the peritubial capillary veins. So we have here the peritubial capillaries. So it is cling closely to the adjacent renal tubules and empty into the renal arteries. So the peritubial capillaries positioned close and connected to the renal tubules, no, and empty in the renal venules. So since they are located arise or at the top from the high resistant efferent arterioles, they also experience low pressure. So by that, this low pressure, the porous capillaries can now directly absorb solute and water from the tubule cells as these substances are reclaimed from the filtrate. So the juxtaglomeral complex. So each nephron has a glomerular complex, a region where the most distal distal portion. So it's a region where it is far away from the kidney. The ascending leg of the nephron loop lies against the afferent interior, feeding the glomerulus and sometimes the efferent and arteriole. So the GDC includes the three population of cells that regulate the rate of filtrate formation and systemic blood pressure. The macula densa, so it's a dense spot. It is a group of tall, closely packed cells in ascending limb of a nephron loop that lies adjacent to the granular cells. Its cells are chemoreceptors that monitors the sodium chloride content of the filtrate entering the distal convoluted tubule. So the granule cells are the anterior walls. They're enlarged smooth muscle cells with prominent secretory granules containing the enzyme renin. So it is act as mechanoreceptors. While macula densa, it is cells are chemoreceptor. The granular cells is a is it acts as mechanoreceptors. While the third one, extraglomerular mesangia cells lie between the anterior and tubule cells. So these are interconnected by gap junctions. So these cells may pass regulatory signals between macula densa and granular cell. So we have here the mechanism of urine formation. So it is a mechanism how or a physiology of kidney how urine is formed. So glomeral filtration is number one. So it is a dumping into the waste container that takes place in the renal corpuscle and produces a cell and protein free filtrates. So in a glomerulus, there is a process called glomerular filtration. It's a passive process in which hydrostatic pressure forces fluids and solute through a membrane. So it passes through a membrane. The glomeruli, the plural of glomerulus, can be viewed as a simple mechanical filter. So it is in the glomerulus that blood is being filtered. So our total plasma volume filters in the renal tubules for every 22 minutes, as so you know, would be drained away as urine in less than 30 minutes. So our total plasma volume filters into the renal tubules about every 22 minutes. So all our plasma would drain away as urine in less than 30 minutes. It's just as short at that time. So it not for the tubular reabsorption, which quickly reclaims most of the tubulus contents and returns them to the blood. So tubular reabsorption. So it's the reclaiming what the body needs to keep. So most of the content aside as the glomerulus or capillaries in the kidney are filtering the waste from the blood, the filtrate is being separated, and also there's a process that in the tubules there are reabsorption of selective substances that is still needed in the body. So it reclaims, it reabsorb other contents and return them to the blood. So the tubular reabsorption is a selective transepithelial process that begins as soon as the filtrate enters the proximal tubule. So it is a synchronized event inside our kidney, most specifically at the capillaries or the glomerulus. So in the tubular reabsorption, uh, I would have to share to you, although it's not in the slide, that there are two reabsorption processes: the active process and the passive process. So these processes are regulated by hormone signals. And the number one is the active tubular reabsorption. So it requires ATP other directly. It is called primary active transport, or indirectly for at least one of its steps. So while the passive tubular reabsorption, it encompasses diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis process in which the substances move down the electrochemical gradient. So aside from the two kinds, two reabsorption processes, there are types of tubular reabsorption also. The tubular reabsorption of sodium and the tubular reabsorption of nutrient, water, and ions. So, for the information of everybody, sodium ions are the single most abundant cations in the filtrate, and about 80% of energy used for active transport is devoted to reabsorbing them. So that's the role of the sodium ions. And in the tubular reabsorption of nutrients, water, and ions, the reabsorption of Na1 by primary active transport provides Na1, or known as the sodium ions, by primary by the absorption of the sodium ions by the tubular by the active tubular reabsorption, it provides the energy and the means of reabsorbing almost every other substance, including water. So, the third one, we have the tubular. If there are glomerular filtration And the second one, if there are reabsorption, there are also secretion. So the most important way to clear plasma, it is in a tubular secretion. So the the way of removing or clearing our plasma of unwanted substances is to simply not to reabsorb. It's just simple. So it's not being reabsorbed, so it will not go back to our blood system. Then for then from then another way is essentially reabsorption in reverse, no? So tubular secretion moves selected substances, just like uh, the hydrogen ion, the potassium ion, the creatinine, and other organic acids and bases from the tubular capillaries through the tubules in the filtrate. So when you say tubular secretion, is a selectively adding to the waste container, no? So it will not go back to our blood stream. So then the other one, okay, next slide. So we have here the glomerular filtration occurs in the renal corpuscle. Tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion occur all along the renal tubules. So take note that glomerular filtration occurs in the renal corpuscle. So it is in the kidney. Then closest to the kidney, then tubular reabsorption, tubular, because of the term tubular, so it occurs or it happens, the processes along the renal tubules. So just look at the picture. So glomerular filtration. In the glomerular, blood plasma and dissolved substances smaller than most proteins get filtered into the glomerular capsule, so in the capillaries in the kidney. So tubular reabsorption, all along the renal tubules and collecting ducts, water, ions, and other substances get the reabsorbed from the renal tubules, lumen into the peritubual capillaries, and ultimately into the blood. So it returns to the blood. Then tubular secretion, all along the renal tubules and collecting ducts, substance such as waste, drugs, and excess ions are secreted from the peritubual capillaries into the renal tubule. So these substances ultimately make their way into the urine. So it causes in the formation of urine after the tubular secretion. So for the information of everybody, that our kidneys process 180 liters just or about 47 gallons of blood driven fluid daily. So every day our kidney processes 180 liters or 47 gallons of blood driven fluid. So less than 1% of that, or it accounts to 1.5 liters, leaves the body as in the form of urine. So the rest almost of the the blood being filtered is returned to the circulation. So it's just a small amount of urine after the filtration. So kidneys process 1,200 ml of blood that passes through the glomeruli each minute. So each minute, kidney processes 1,200 ml of blood that passes through the glomerulus or the glomeruli. Plural. Some 650 ml is excuse me. So the 650 ml is the plasma, and about 120 to 125 ml, or about 1/5 of this, is forced in the glomerular capsule as filtrate. So this is equivalent to the filtering your entire plasma volume more than 60 times a day. So imagine, even our kidney is just a small, one of the small organ in our body, but it has a tough job to take every day. So can you imagine that it works 60 times filtering our blood? That huge amount of blood every day. So the filtrate contains everything found in the blood plasma except protein. So urine contains unneeded substances such as exosols and metabolic processes. So that's all for my part, the anatomy and physiology inside our kidney. And for the continuation of our report, we have Miss Claire to discuss the other part of the kidney as our urine excreted waste is passing through. So we all done from the kidney. So Miss Claire, we will be hearing about the urine passing through the ureter, the unstored in the urinary bladder and excreted in the urethra. So thank you everyone. Thank you, ma'am.